Hello, my name is Adam Zoltie, and it gives me immense pride to bring you the very first episode of revamp, a show which combines news, previews and my views from the world of sport. As we gear up for our debut appearance, we'll be looking at the January transfer window and a new and possibly controversial way of revamping it. I'll also be bringing you updates of sporting events that are coming up in the next couple of weeks. So, I've got my laces done up, my lucky pants on, and my balls pumped up, ready for kickoff. We've just had that time of year where they cram as much sport into the calendar as possible. We should all know about the major stories, such as Chelsea sitting on top of the Premier League for the first time in 2015, and Neil Warnock having the unlucky accolade of being the first manager to be sacked in the 2014-2015 season. Some stories which may have escaped your attention include Brazil winning the Women's Futsal World Tournament for the 5th time in a row, and Great Britain being promoted to Division 1 of the World Junior Ice Hockey Championships 2015. So well done to them. Although we just had the Christmas holidays, January the 1st brings about one of the most exciting times of the year for football fans. In fact, some say it's like Christmas, New Year's and your birthday all rolled into one. Yes, it's the transfer window. However, with the amount of money that's being ploughed into the game, clubs like Manchester City, Chelsea, PSG, Real Madrid have pretty much carte blanche on any player in the world they want. And what this does is create more of a gap between themselves and the teams below them. This leads to more predictable leagues year in, year out. And to be honest, I can only see it getting worse. But what's the solution? So, I have come up with an idea which is probably a little bit contentious. Some may even say heinous. But you certainly can't argue that it wouldn't make one hell of a competitive league. My suggestion is making the current transfer system like the American draft system. Now, how would this work, I hear you say? The finer points would obviously have to be laid out, but it would essentially work like this. Players that wanted to be transferred, or clubs that wanted their players to be transferred, would apply to be part of an international transfer pool. And they'd have to do this by a certain date. So if we look at January, it would be the second week in January. After this deadline is up for them to apply, there would be 1 week where an independent panel would rank the players based on their skill level, ability, age, position, etc. Now once this has been done, you would have what would probably be known as the transfer weekend. 2 to 3 days where clubs would choose which players they wanted. Now the way this would work is the club that is ranked at the bottom of the table would get the first pick, the club that's ranked in 19th would get second pick, 18th, third pick, etc. So you work all the way up the Premier League and the club that's at the very top would get last pick. So in this case, Chelsea. And once that round is up, we'd continue going until all the players are gone or clubs don't want any more players. Now what this would essentially do, it would eliminate the need for transfer fees. But clubs would spend more money on player salaries and you could still have transfer fees which would actually be moved to draft fees. So for example, if Chelsea really wanted another striker to back up Diego Costa, they would perhaps know that Karim Benzema has put himself forward for a transfer in the window and he's going to be one of the top picks. So they could pay Leicester or Burnley, whoever's in that lower part of the table, £10 million to get their draft pick. So money would be exchanged that way. In the summer there would be 2 transfer windows. There would be one for under 21 players and then there would be one for international players or players over the age of 21. Now the only way that this would work is if clubs and players around the world realised that this was the case. So you wouldn't have an instance where a player would be hankering for a move to a club that's in a certain city or a certain country, They would know that if they're going into the transfer pool, then they're getting a transfer to a club. Now, like I said, it's pretty controversial and I can't exactly see it happening, but you cannot argue that it wouldn't shake up the monotony of the beautiful game around the world. This part is nice and simple. It's where I bring you competitions, tournaments, fixtures, athletes, teams, anything else sport related from around the world for you to keep a note in your diary. On the 9th of January, we'll see the start of the AFC Asian Cup, like the Euros for Asian teams. Unlike the African Cup of Nations, it doesn't get as much coverage, but I bet in the next few weeks you'll see more media outlets giving it more and more airtime. Another event to keep an eye out for, if you can, is the American Football College Championship game. For those of you that love your NFL, this is the perfect opportunity for you to see future stars of gridiron before they make the April draft. And I couldn't spend a whole episode talking about the transfer window without talking about one or two players I would love to see in England. One of them might be quite obvious, but it's Edinson Cavani from PSG. Now, this striker has a really impressive rate of about 1 goal every 2 games, and to see him in the Premier League along the likes of Alexis Sanchez, Diego Costa, Robin van Persie, Cesc Fabregas will be absolutely mouth-watering. But what I really like about this guy, and why I think he's so suited to the English game, is his work rate is absolutely phenomenal. You'll see him tracking back, you'll see him working hard, and like I said, I think that makes him really well suited to the Premier League. Another player that I'd like to see, slightly a different take on this, is a young player called Martin Ødegaard from Strømsgodset. Now, this kid is a winger, and football fans may have heard of him because he is the youngest player to ever make his debut for Norway and the youngest, or one of the youngest, to ever play in a European qualifying campaign. Now, this kid has got immense skill. He can dribble, he's got a really good eye for a pass, and I think he'd do well at club, perhaps Southampton or Everton, clubs that are good at nurturing youth talent, bringing them into the first team. Perhaps we can see him go out on loan to a club lower down the pyramid where he can build up his talent, come back into the Premier League and make a real impact. So hopefully one or both of those players we'll see in the English game in the next couple of years. That's it for the first episode of Rosed. I hope you enjoyed it. The beauty of sport is that everyone has an opinion, but it certainly gives us plenty to talk about. If you'd like to leave any suggestions or comments below, feel free to do so. Perhaps something you'd like to see me discuss in future editions of the show. Once again, thank you very much for watching. Look out for the next episode, and I wish you all a very happy New Year.